Why hello, Miss Bryan. Today, I'm going to be talking about Laura Helen Bryan Unbroken. This book was really inspiring, moving, and just an all-around incredible story. It was about a guy named Louis Zamperini who was the kid in the streets who always stole stuff and ran away and was the guy that nobody wanted to mess with, and that he was the most he was the rowdy one out of the bunch and always wanted to he was always getting in trouble, let's put it that way. And so his brother, his name was Pete, he finally got him to really Pete got him to get into track. And so he started practicing, and so he got so good that he went to the Olympics and was almost going to be one of the first people to run the 4-minute mile. And so then World War II hit, and he saw the option that either he was going to be drafted and he wouldn't have a choice of where he went, or he could draft now and choose wherever he wanted to go. So he chose the Air Force, and essentially the story starts from there. He's sent out to Hawaii. He does a couple missions, and his plane goes down on a rescue mission, and he and 2 other guys are the only people that survive. And they stay on a lifeboat for a record amount of time, like almost 50 days. And the rations that they had from the plane, whenever it went down, the guy ate it on the first night when he panicked. And so they did that, and they ended up floating over 2,000 miles into Japanese territory, into one of their islands. And he became a prisoner of war, suffered incredibly brutal, inhumane treatment. And yet, after 5 years of that, he came back home in sometime in the 1950s. I think it was 1955. And so after that, he was so glad to be back home, and he became a drunkard because he started having all sorts of crazy flashbacks and things, and it was the only way that he could forget about the war, because he's suffered so much torture and just his dignity was lost. And so he met a girl, and they got together and got married, but it still couldn't cure his need for alcohol. And so his wife divorced him, or started filing for a divorce, and they came back just so she could finish the paperwork. And she saw that Billy Graham was in town, and so they went, or she went and watched one of his sermons and said it was one of the most incredible things ever in her life. And so she came and talked with Louis for 12 days or something like that to convince him to go, and he eventually went. And so he went, and it was really moving, and he started feeling kind of, what's the word? Triggered and accused. And so he stormed out of there, and then after a few more days, his wife convinced him to go back. And so after that, he remembered, he went there, and it was incredibly moving, and he was about to leave during the prayer, whenever they were going to ask him to convert to declare Jesus as Lord. And he said that nobody leaves now, and he was speaking to Louis. And then he had a flashback to whenever he was on the water, and he made a promise that if God saved him throughout everything that he had been through, he would devote his whole life to serving him. And he suddenly snapped back to reality. He was a totally new person. He went there, and he became a Christian, and he started telling his story and just going out and helping all sorts of people. And he created a camp for kids like him when he was little. And throughout until he was I think he died when he was 97. Up until then, he was running, and he was so involved and so physically active. And so this was just an incredible story. It was really heavy at times, but in the end, it had an incredible ending, and it is so inspiring just to see all the different ways that God can move through different stuff and make it all work out in the end. It's also written by the lady who wrote Seabiscuit, and this is just an incredible story. Yep, that was my review of Laura Hillenbrand's Unbroken, and yeah, it was really incredible, and I am glad that I listened to Reed, Tejas, and everybody else that read it in class. So, that is it. Thank you so much, and toodaloo, I shall see you tomorrow.